Hi guys, welcome to Purple Angles. I'm Stephanie,
And I'm Natalie.
where we bring back healthy conversations.
And the beauty of divergent opinions.
Today's topic is purpose. So I'll let you, Natalie, start with the definition of what is really purpose.
That's something we hear a lot of, and I think we were interested in kind of bringing this up today because we've asked ourselves that question. And so when you look, at the official definition and what is purpose, right? So the first, I'm going to share a few definitions because the first one is more, I think it's missing a little bit of heart, and I think it's a little bit more logical. So it's a reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. So I find it very general, but I think when you look at what is like a human being's purpose, it's more the cumulative effect of meaningful goals. I found that definition to be a little bit more relatable to us as people. And another thing that I saw was actually the long-term aim or guiding principle based on meaning.
Okay. What I found mostly in like different studies and things I've read is having a direction in life and a meaning.
Yeah.
And that's more for the human part, because you could look at a pen and you're like, the purpose of a pen is to write. But exactly. As pens, it's so unclear and so unique and so different. And so we do ask ourselves, like, what am I here for? What is purpose? What is my purpose? And I think many people do ask themselves that. And so we'll address it a little bit more. How did you go ahead?
Now, actually, my question to you was going to be, how have you kind of dealt with purpose, or what your purpose is? Have you ever asked yourself that question? And if so, how did you deal with that? How did you find the answer? Did you find the answer? What do you feel about all this?
It was a challenging. I've never really asked myself like, oh, what is my purpose? And like took a paper and like wrote. That never really happened. However, I did ask myself like, what am I doing? What is my, because at some point when I realized like pharmacy wasn't necessarily my thing, you start asking yourself questions like, I don't feel I'm on the right path. And it's a very difficult transition to go through, and realizing things about yourself, about your career, about what you chose, about who you are, and all of that. So it was a challenging time, and also realizing that that's a very difficult idea in reality. Like, we're born, we work, we exist, and we die. So when you start understanding that, it becomes difficult and challenging to go on a day-to-day. For me, it was like, okay, like what am I doing here? What's the goal? What's like, why am I working? Why am I even doing things if I'm gonna end up dying? So it was difficult, but also positive in some ways, where it made me realize that everyone's the same. That at some point there's it's yeah, it was very difficult on an emotional standpoint, but once you start moving and start doing different things, it helps you get out of that state and understand different things of life. I could go on, but I'd like to hear your first part of it. And how did you ever ask yourself like, what is my purpose? Or how did you go on with that?
For me, purpose is meaning. Is what's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of what I do every day? What's the meaning of the actions that I take? Or so for me, purpose has always been more about meaning. Have I ever asked myself the question, what's my purpose? Yes. I think in the last few years, I did sometimes, like, I've taken the time to kind of, sit down and be like, okay, what's my purpose? And you're right. Sometimes we sit down as if it's like this obvious thing we need to know, or obvious thing we should be realizing. And there is some type of like social pressure when it comes to figuring out what your purpose is and what your mission in life is. And I do find that to be stressful in a certain way. So I have kind of been caught up in this, and like, listening to like people talking about purpose and meaning and what's my purpose and what's my mission and am I aligned or not? And I so yes, I did. do I have an answer to what like my purpose is, or what the meaning of my life is? Not a specific one. I think for me, it's something that's very that changes throughout time, that has changed throughout time. We do put a lot of association with work and career when it comes to mission and when it comes to purpose, and I think that's something to be careful about. um that's a role we play, you know, we can, like, what kind of job we have, or what kind of work we do on a regular basis, or whether you're an entrepreneur or you're an employee or you're, you know, a stay-at-home mom. These are all roles you're playing in a way in your life. It's one of the roles you have. It's not what defines you and what defines what you're going to accomplish in your life. It can help you attain certain goals. But to me, it was more about, now how I see this is more, what's the meaning? What's the intention behind all of this? And how do I want to kind of, you know, lead my life or live my life in a way that has intention and has meaning? So I don't have a specific goal, let's say, or a specific purpose at the moment, and I know it's something that changes a lot. The one thing I do want to bring kind of to this conversation, the point that I want to bring to this conversation is the stress that can be related, or the pressure we put on ourselves to kind of figure this out. And I think it's important to go back to what is truly important, and which is being good with yourself. And I know you've looked into, you know, the kind of pressure or anxiety that kind of, you know, finding that purpose can create in people. And I would love for you to speak more about that.
It's actually, there's a name. I was surprised to see they call it purpose anxiety. It's an anxiety and negative feelings, so stress, worry, frustrations that arrive when seeking life fulfillment, which seems so paradoxical. It's like so the opposite of what fulfillment should be bringing you, what the positive impact of understanding or creating or having a purpose, as they say. So and the associated purpose anxiety, often when you change jobs, when something happens, when kind of a portion of your life gets a bit destroyed and you lose that sense of direction, which goes back to a bit of the definition, like having a direction, having a purpose, having something. So it is something that affects many people. And you brought something super important, I think, that purpose we often associated with career. And it's even the first thing that I said, like I wasn't even sure where I was heading, and maybe my ultimate goal is something else. So there's this association with career-wise and having a sense of worth and fulfillment that is associated with career, rather than just existing, being surrounded, connecting with other people, being a mom or a dad or a sister or a sibling or a friend even, which could bring meaning at different levels. And that purpose anxiety could be a challenging time and lead to more stress than anything else. So personally, when I was going through a bit of trying to figure out and that kind of sense of searching, I really refocused on myself. And that's when purpose, if you want to call it purpose, came to me. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing things that I'm not understanding why I'm doing. So I stopped focusing on what the having to find something. I'm like, I'm going to stop. It's going to find me if it has to find me. I don't know what I have. Like, I don't know, period. And I started being comfortable with the fact of, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know why I'm here for, but it's on me whether I want to enjoy it or not. Because at the end of the day, we're all heading to the same place. So do I want to live my life every day being stuck in that circle of, I don't know what I'm doing and why I'm here? And so it's just stressful for nothing. So I flipped my mindset and I'm like, I'm just going to enjoy life. I'm going to exist. I'm going to try different things. And I allowed myself to test, to create, to do, and then things start coming to you. So I started understanding things about me. I'm like, oh, I think I'm good in research. There's things that I'm figuring out. People come ask me questions. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I enjoy it. It's not something that is hard. People think that well, people think me, I don't know, but purpose shouldn't be something hard, or work shouldn't be something hard. It should be something easy that gives you energy. And sometimes understanding and being really more focused on you could make you understand if you're doing something that is pleasurable or just more heavy. So those different signs, those are different tricks that helped me go through this phase of questioning and understanding where I was heading. So
I'm happy you're sharing this. I think that I mean, we're speaking a lot about how, you know, success and work and career kind of for a lot of people, and I'm going to include myself in that, because that's also something that I've linked together in the past, was the source of your purpose and of your and you know what the meaning of your life is. And it's a big chunk of your life. It's something that, you know, you spend a lot of your time doing, and of course it has to be something that you enjoy and that you want to be happy doing every day, and not feel like you're struggling or you're miserable doing that job or that work or that career. I think for me, what's important when it comes to purpose now and when it comes to meaning is that it's not something that's outside of me. Purpose, meaning is something intrinsic. It's something that's inside of you. It's actually who you truly are. And it's going back to who you really, really are, and living your life according to that, and living your life not lying to yourself, not trying to have this facade, not trying to be a specific person. We are surrounded by images and images of success and of, you know, entrepreneurship and being a millionaire by the age of 30, and, you know, buying this house and this car, and those are beautiful things to aim for. I'm not saying like not to go for that. That's a goal that's interesting to have, but it does not define you, and it doesn't define your happiness, and it doesn't define how you feel when you're sleeping at night, and if you have an ease, like, you know, your mind at ease or your soul at ease. Having purpose for me, and what I want to share with everybody, is actually going back to yourself and going back to who you are as a person, who you are, and all those roles you play in your life, as I was sharing before, whether it's being a daughter, a mom, a sister, a friend, an employee. Like, these are all different roles we play on a daily basis, but are they true to who you are? And you were sharing earlier about how sometimes some people can go into this kind of dark place where you're thinking like, why am I doing this? Why am I on this earth? What's my meaning? What's my purpose? And it can become very, very dark. And I know a lot of people that struggle with mental health can get into that place. And it can be can create a lot of anxiety and a lot of, you know, sometimes suicidal thoughts and depression in a lot of people, because of this kind of social pressure we have to find this meaning, like as if it's like a homework you have to do in your lifetime, and you have to figure out what it is. And that can be very stressful, like for everybody, for anybody. But what I also want to point out is that some people go into that dark place, but some people don't even think about it. I'm sure some people were saying this and they might not relate. They're like, I've never even thought of that, or I've never even thought about it this way. Like, to me, it's just, I'm living my life. And that's beautiful. That's actually beautiful. Because if that's how you're feeling, that's because most probably you are being true to yourself, and you are living your life according to what feels right for you. Is that the case for everybody? I don't think so. Some people are going about their life and maybe not being happy, and not maybe taking the time to see if they are being authentic to themselves and truly acting according to their own personal values and their own personal, let's say, goals, you know, when it comes to how you are as a person. So that I think there's different perspectives. There's different ways people are seeing it. So you have, you know, the darker sides. You have people that don't even think about it, but are being true to themselves. And you have people that are like not even thinking about it at all and not being happy within themselves. So for me, it's actually going back to like, what does make you happy? What makes you happy? What makes you feel good on a daily basis?
I think that sense, that feeling should be the driver. So
exactly.
I wasn't necessarily good, well, or feeling amazing. And I'm like, okay. But first of all, I had to change my perspectives and my relationship with my previous job. I had to change a lot of things before I actually figure out purpose. And I personally, and that's what I speak about in spiritual psychosis, I don't think you find purpose. I think it finds you when you're ready and when you know yourself. And when it just comes and it flows. It should be easy and things just happen. We're not used to having things easy. So we don't understand. We
Yeah.
have this hustle culture thinking that we need to find purpose. It's hard work. The work is not outside, it's inner work. Everything that you do, that you're going to try to do different things. I was doing arts and different things, and we'll speak about this in the next podcast, and different creative ways, just testing out and trying to understand me. And again, changing my relationship with, okay, I don't like my job, I'm unhappy where I am, but okay, what is my job bringing me in a positive sense? Oh, it's bringing me actually finance, income. I could eat, some people can't eat. So okay, so really changing the perspective and shifting to gratitude towards everything around, that already made the heaviness gradually go away. It was a very, like, it was a daily work. You had to change, I had to change my relationship with everything, and then started being me, which is hard because you have all these preconceived ideas of what you should be, and you gotta take these off and tame it down and re-listen to that voice that you shut down almost all your life because of society and different things and friendships and family. And so starting to listen to myself, writing down, and gradually then you start realizing, again, like you say, it's really an inner work. Who are you? What do you like? What do you enjoy? And I often ask people, like, what do you like? And I've heard many people tell me, I don't know. So, and when you don't know, it's okay. Like, take off the pressure of having to know everything. It's okay. But having that momentum and that trying things and being okay with failing and succeeding, and not in career wise, just like you draw something and it's really ugly. Okay, cool. Just experiencing and having that sense of finding pleasure again in being and in existing. That is something that helped me get out of that little dark phase. If someone is going through this and doesn't know where to go, I would start with just changing the relationship with everything around you, from your home, your food, your everything, and just see it as a positive and try to bring the positive out of everything that is around you. Already that is going to shift a bit of the perceptions on things, and then allow, just, its purpose is like flow, so it should be easy and just allow you to move. And it's something we don't necessarily let ourselves do, to just be as you.
No, I totally agree with you on that. There's one thing you said I might see differently. I think when it comes to, when we say, like, do people like, what do you like? What don't you like? What do you think, your goal is, or what, your mission is? And I think we know. I think that deep down inside of us, I think we know what we're good at. We know what we're not good at. I think we know what we like. If we actually sit down and think about it, we know. It's just sometimes we don't necessarily want to admit these things, or it's not the things we think that we should be aiming for, because that's not what we've been told were like the right things to do, or things that, some people are very good at connecting with people. Some people are very good at nurturing people. This can be a type of mission for you. This is what you're good at. You can be successful doing these things in so many ways. Some people are creatives. Some people, not everybody's a creative either, but some people. So it's actually being true to yourself and listening to that. I'm not going to say inner voice, but listening to, yes, that inner voice that knows what you like. You can go back and think about how you were as a child, when you didn't have all those, thoughts in your mind and all those kind of preconceived notions of what life should be and what success is. But what were the things you liked? What were the things you would end up, spend hours doing? It could be, I don't know, watching a documentary on fish. Like, it doesn't matter. And this is something that fascinates you. You can use that as fuel for something you can do in your life. Anything can be done if it's something that you enjoy and that you're good at. You have that power inside of you to just have to push that forward. Is it easy? Of course it's not. I think the first step is being aware. And that's what I think is the most important thing, is self-awareness, is knowing who you are, where you come from, what's the conditioning that you were kind of brought up in, what's the culture you're from, How did that impact your life? What are the things that happened in your life that might have, changed you or brought different perspectives and new things into your life? So being self-aware of who you truly, truly are, being honest with yourself, and then going forward with those things and using that as a strength and not as something that might seem, odd or weird or not like the common, successful trait to have. But I do believe we all have something inside of us that's powerful, that can bring a lot of positive to the world. And that's something we should look into. And that's what I think we should focus on when we're kind of asking ourselves that question. So that's what I mean by going back in. It's all about going back in.
Thank you for adding this. And you pinpointed, like, I think it's the judgment portion, like reducing the judgment towards oneself and one's own desires, and because that too, the whole preconception, and we spoke about this in previous podcasts about shame and culture and that preconceived idea. So you have to erase all of this to really allow yourself to be. And sometimes what you think your purpose is not what it is, because it's a preconceived idea.
Exactly.
So sometimes it's destroying that idea that will allow you to see, or it to see you, to then be more fulfilled. It's challenging, but once you start doing the work, it's just, and you don't have to know everything. I think people have this conception that everything should be planned, goals, and everything is going to happen and that's rigid and doesn't allow purpose to flow again. So
yeah. And I think staying in your mind a lot, when you're having those thoughts and you're thinking and you're focusing and I love that you talk about flow. And I think that's something that we both kind of, relate to. When we're very focused on what's the next thing and what's the plan for it and how am I going to go about it, and that stress that's related to all those goals or a specific goal you want to hit, or whether it's financial, relational, like all of them, that doesn't allow flow, and that actually creates more anxiety and more stress within you. I think we need to remind ourselves and remind people and our listeners, what's the most important is being you. You being yourself is the most important thing. It's not how you go about it. It's not what the next step is going to be. It's not how you're going to, are you going to become rich? Are you going to have, I don't know how many kids? Are you going to become a millionaire? Like, everything we're seeing nowadays is about that, right? And that's what's defined as success. Are you going to have those beautiful things? But ultimately, that's not happiness. It can bring you happiness. I'm not saying these beautiful things are like something to like not aim for. Yes, of course it can help, and it can bring some type of happiness, but it's the happiness within you and with the people around you that's the most important. And kind of letting go of that mental stress we put on ourselves when it comes to figuring out these goals and figuring out that purpose, when ultimately the purpose is actually being happy, and helping other people and making a positive impact on the world, whether it's by cutting people's hairs and making them happy and making you feel happy. Well, then that's wonderful. Maybe it might be, building an amazing company and like employing thousands and thousands of people and making a difference this way. That's another amazing, goal to have. What makes you happy, and how can you bring that forward to other people? And I think that's what we sometimes forget.
I would switch it by, like, the goal, I wouldn't say the goal would be to be happy, but it's to be you, and by being you, you will be happy. So just focus more on really being you, and to be that, you have to be brutally honest with yourself. When you say, I want $1 million, does that even come from you or not?
Yeah.
Does it come from something you've heard, from something you saw on the news, from your friends, your surrounding? Because all of those are unconscious and conscious impacts, influence that are impacting who you really are. Sometimes positive, sometimes negative, but if you're feeling that anxiety purpose, sometimes something that helped me is being more alone. So I was taming down all these voices, because it's hard to shut them down a little bit and to really, okay, like, who am I, and really start from the ground up and rebuild it. Because we saw, and I did read, and I think you did read quite a bit too, about different studies, and positive impacts that purpose could have on one's life. And I wonder if it's really the purpose or the relationship and the really becoming you that leads to a better fulfillment, happiness, and all the associated positive impacts, including like reduced depression, reducing heart risks and stuff like that we've seen. So it's an interesting way to perceive it, but working for your purpose, in my opinion, and I think you agree, and tell me if not, but it's really working on you. And I think we've repeated it so much, but it's so important, and really focusing on who you are with life.
I think, I mean, I agree with you, yes, on that. I think it is a good trick or a good recommendations to, like, you know, sometimes go back in and like take that alone time, as you were saying. Like what you did was kind of not isolate yourself, but kind of, you know, have more time with yourself in a way, to kind of go back in and realize, have those realizations, or better understanding of where you come from and who you truly are. But we also live in it. We do live with people, and we are human beings that need to connect. And this is part of who we are, as our nature. So we do live in a society, and we live with people around us, and it's important to be able to connect with these people. And like today, if you know, if you would have asked me the question 5 years ago, and if you would have asked me the question today, what is your purpose, it's a totally different answer, and my perspective on it is very, very different. You would have told me 5 years ago, be like, oh, you know, I want to help people, I want to, you know, I want to change the world, I want to become a successful entrepreneur. There's like multiple things that like would have come up. If you ask me the question now, is ultimately being authentic to myself and being true to myself, but also giving back and being of service to other people, because that's personally when I feel my best. And when I'm giving back to people, and when I'm doing acts of service and kind of devoting myself for that, is when I truly feel my best. And I believe, in my opinion, I believe we're on this world to give more than what we ever receive, and being in service to others more than ourselves. And I'm not saying that in a way that like you abandon yourself. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think there's just so much positivity, and there's so much love, and there's so much positive energy around giving back and being of service, that it trumps any kind of material or any kind of external, you know, like definition of success. It's being true to yourself, to the people around you, and to the you know, your family, your friends, the people that love you, that you love, and sharing those that what life is. That's what life is those moments. It's those connections. It's, yes, we live, we grow, and we die, and we can look at it in such a, you know, negative way sometimes, and be like, that can, you know, that's very dark, and like, what's my purpose in life? What am I going to do? What kind of legacy am I going to leave behind? But I think if you are authentic to yourself, and you're true to yourself, and you're living your life in the present as much as possible, and enjoying the people around you, and bringing positive energy around you, I think that's the end goal. That's what the end goal is for me. And it's leaving this earth knowing that you've done good, and you've done the best you could, and you've lived your life as much as possible, like at your, I'm going to say authentic again, because that's like the true word that goes with this, but like as your most authentic self. There are bad moments, there are going to be happy moments. That's life. Yes, you want to be as happy as possible most of the time. But it's how you deal with that, and how you kind of make the best of it.
Thank you for sharing. Beautiful. I want to add one little thing.
If like someone would have asked you 5 years ago and today, what's your purpose? How has that changed or not for you? And how would you define it today?
I think it's going to constantly change. I don't have a fixed time or set for a purpose or for what I'm doing. At this point, I'm very comfortable with, I'm happy. It brings me life. It brings me energy for what I do. And I've reached a point, I've worked a lot, and I think you did too. And when you speak about giving back and service, I think I've worked enough to fill myself to feel complete, because I think to a certain extent, because giving can fill you up too. So it's a two-way thing. But sometimes when you're depleted or you gave and you're in that state, and we could speak about this in another podcast. But I filled myself to a point where I'm good. And now I'm at a state where it's like giving back and I'm comfortable, because I don't feel like it actually fills me up. And I think you feel that too at this point. And it really changes. Now it's related to mental health, this project that I didn't decide. It's not something I came up and I woke up and I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. It's just like, I'm like, oh, okay. Like it kind of came to life, and I'm like, and it's still building. It's still in process. I don't have a fixed mindset of what it is or what it's going to be exactly. I just flow. I allow it to be. Like I wake up and I keep momentum. I keep moving. And is it going to change in a year, in 10 years, 5 years? Probably. Because you turn, like, things move, and it's the planet moves, nature moves, we move. It's part of life, including purpose. So allow it. I don't have a fixed set. 5 years ago would have been different, and with reason.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and I'm happy you're sharing that. That's a different perspective from what I've shared, and I am happy you're doing this, because I think people might see this very differently. We're kind of sharing our perspective and our view on this, and we already have differences between yours and mine, and I would be like very, very happy to see what other people, like what our listeners think about purpose and what they think it means, and how do they feel about it. Is it something that creates stress, or is it something that they are happy to look into? Is it something that is related to their careers, or is it something that's related to their personal life? Like, what's their perspective on that? And so I would love to hear other people's kind of opinion on it. And regarding what we're doing now and what we're working on, and we are, I mean, with Purple Angles, we are putting a lot of emphasis and a lot of focus on mental health, because it's a subject that reaches, I think, both of us that touches us very, very dearly. I agree with you when you say it's something that finds you, but one thing I'm going to a little bit disagree on is when I actually stop and look back, because I did feel this way too about it. I'm like, it's just something that happened. My life has brought me kind of in that direction, but when I stop and really look back, like, you know, when I was a kid to today, the number of events or things I was involved in that were related to that is obvious, actually. So but it's very true. Like, because I do feel like it's something that just kind of it's making sense in a way today, right? It feels like it just happened. But if I'm being honest with myself and go back, so many things happened in whether I was like, you know, 6 or 7 years old, things I was listening to or that attracted me, or conversations that I would have, or like as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult, all of it, a lot of it was related to mental health. I would always be the person like defending, you know, the kid that was kind of, you know, either bullied or, you know, came from like a bad neighborhood, or didn't have all the means necessary and like was affected mentally by that. I was always the kid going to that kid or trying to help them or defending them in front of the other kids. Or when I was in high school doing things that were related to mental health and community work and charity work, and same thing as a young adult. And I'm like working, you know, with drug addicts. So I think it's something I had in me. And I think I haven't realized it until today, until like very, very recently. And that's why I think it's important to kind of take the time to do that reflection and be true to who you are, and be true to who you like, what actually makes you feel good. Like, think of those moments that like you felt your best. What were you doing in those moments, you know? And then kind of keep that in mind and be like, okay, what can I do? What can I do with that? And is that the track I'm on? And if it's not the track you're on, well, how can I bring that into my life a little bit more? It doesn't have to be your job or your career. It can be a hobby. It can be something you do on the side, but that fills you up with so much joy because it touches every single, like, you know, good part of your being. And I think it's taking the time to kind of go back and reflect and realizing these things. I think we have signs along the way that we're just not didn't necessarily listen to or acknowledged or realized. So
allowed it to take
yes,
place in your life now, which is why it's manifesting and happening and changing.
yeah, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
guys
you.
for tuning in. Thank you for sharing your story. And we'll see you at the next podcast.